When I was very young, I had a dream. Behind these screens lurked a gigantic dark being. Its intentions were very bad, and I was like terrified of what that thing was. Instead of running away, I imagined that what I had to do to confront the demon was to be worse than the demon. And so I charged, screaming and yelling, with the intent to kill. And then I must have woken up. I always had in mind and had, fantasized about having a studio where I could make the movies that I wanted to make, which is just ridiculous because it's so expensive. As a kid, I met Ray Bradbury, and Ray was like the adult that preached the gospel of following your heart as a so-called, creative person, and, do what you love, at all costs, and so he would, all the adults were going, what do you want to do, Philip, when you grow up? So I want to be a stop-motion animator like Ray Harryhausen. Well, how many of those are there in the world, Philip? There's Ray Harryhausen. Well, do you think that's a reasonable kind of a thing to really want to do? I don't know. That's what I want to do. And, and Ray was the guy that was standing there going like, that's what you want to do. My parents thought that I was obsessed, and they were worried because I was like all into monsters and weird things. And I was. It was my total focus in life. I got professionally involved, and I was just in the right place at the right time with the right people, and then just everything just kind of like took off from there. The Tippett studio started in my garage. George Lucas came along, and I worked with some of the top people in the field. And, my intention was always to build up enough, cash so that I could put together a functional studio. The studio grew and grew. I'd learned enough stuff where I wanted to make my own movie altogether, so I came up with this idea called Mad God. I wanted Mad God to be more of a process, that figured itself out, that I had to like kind of listen to rather than, work from intent. We shot on 35mm film, and what we shot back then were like these just little snippets of the things that I had made. Then the whole digital revolution hit, and I realized that what I had kind of carved out for myself from Mad God was too big. I kind of just gave up, just got depressed and went, well, this is going nowhere. It was, incumbent on me to keep the studio alive. The effort that it took to reorient myself just took all the effort that I had to, rebuild the studio to have it be digital. If I had to sit in a room and work on a keyboard all day long, I don't even think I would have gotten into the whole, commercial visual effects racket today. It's the tactile hand-eye mind, combination that's of interest to me. I make stuff because it pleases me. And the way I enjoy making things, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So I'm always allowing myself to make like a bunch of mistakes. And you learn a lot from making mistakes. I don't know that she's going to have bloomers. I'm just trying it out. I could pretty much get into any studio that I wanted to and would go in and pitch ideas, work on them, and come up with ideas for scripts. I spent a good 10 or 12 years, trying to develop some stuff myself, but everything that I did, no one was interested in, primarily because it wasn't really commercial, or it was kind of off the beaten path, or for that matter, really not very good. So I, got to a point where I realized, well, you know what? This is very frustrating. Dealing with Hollywood's like dealing with a bank. And so it was just a realization after, banging my head against the wall for, a long period of time that it's like, you know what, I just need to do this thing myself. I would always work on stuff, either draw or sculpt, and somehow all of these ancillary things that I would do just to, keep myself from going crazy were kind of going down this mad God path. There's a tendency, because the stuff is so fucking fiddly, to want to control it, but the more inclusive you are to let people kind of go and do their thing, and just try and stay out of their way and just guide them when you need to, you get so much more great work out of them, and they have a good time and you have a good time, because you work on so many pieces of shit. You work on a lot of things. You might work on a couple of things that are popular, but what you remember are the crews and the people and the time you've had doing it. Maybe 3 years ago, I was archiving I think I had about 6 minutes of Mad God footage. And while I was archiving it, some of the guys at the studio looked over my shoulder and asked me what this weird thing was. And I told them. They started getting excited about it. And then a couple of them just kind of took it on themselves to, said, let's start shooting some of the stuff. a certain point, I really understood the value of how lucky I was to have mentors in my life. You know, when you're doing something like this, you're kind of casting a wide net, and you're not going to catch a lot of fish. Some people, you know, will get it, and some people won't. It's like 10, 15% find it fascinating, 50% give me no feedback. That doesn't do anything for them. And then there's, you know, a bunch of people that you just know are like appalled. I'll make this thing I'm going to make, and I'll put it out there, and it'll live and die on its own.